If you still psych yourself out in big moments within games, this one concept will save your career. Today, I'm going to talk about why fear is an illusion and how it simply cannot control you. This is something I simply wish I knew back when I played, because quite frankly, this would have propelled me to an even higher level of baseball. These are the exact conversations I have with my remote players inside the Close the Gap protocol. So let's get into why fear cannot control you. Fear is simply a feeling that is generally spawned from thought, meaning fear is actually very untangible. With that being said, thought is generally the basis of fear. But why do we have certain thoughts that spawn this feeling, which is the encapsulation of fear? It's simply because this is how our brain copes with the unknown. However, on the flip side, this unknown also grants us an incredible opportunity because all good things are on the other side of unknown. Let me quickly explain why and how the unknown is actually an incredible opportunity. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with history at all. I really like history. And we're all pretty familiar with what this date is. This year marks a massive date in history because it's pretty much the spark of the modern world. Because Christopher Columbus sparked global expansion for the European world. And this was a discovery of the New World and the Americas in a modern sense. Of course, there were indigenous people on the Americas and Vikings even settled there before Columbus. However, in order for Europe to expand their empire and ultimately create the new age and modern world, Columbus had to do this. Now, if you're familiar with your history, he wasn't intentionally doing this, which actually brings it back to my point. Because the Americas were extremely unknown. And really, the whole world at that time was generally pretty unknown for the voyagers. But in order to expand, in order to grow civilization, and bring us even closer as a species to our ideal world, the voyagers of the time simply had to go through the unknown because on the other side was global expansion and probably where you live to this day. And it just goes to show you, on the flip side of the unknown, the opposite side of the fear, there's actually great and amazing opportunities that lie ahead. Now, many of the voyagers at that time, they could have looked at the ocean, they could have looked at their boats, they could have looked at the amount of men they had, and turned around, right? Because of fear. They did not know what lied ahead of them. But they went through that unknown and into uncharted waters and territory, and that is what gave us this boom. And without it, who knows what would have happened? So guys, you charting into unknown territory is very similar to actually how the foundation of this world was brought up. Meaning, what are the things that you avoid because they feel unknown to you? What feels unknown to you and generally is shrouded by fear? Ask yourself that question. And when you get to that point, ask yourself, what would the ideal version of me do? Would they go across uncharted water, go through this fear, and actually attack this unknown variable? Or are they gonna sit back and wait till next time and inevitably push it off again? This fear or unknown territory could be as simple as standing up for yourself in confrontation. It could be speaking your mind when you normally just let your mouth shut. It could be during your ABs when you're normally really timid, but this time you take some risks. With that being said, is it realistic to eliminate fear? Long story short, no, not at all. Fear is actually a biological byproduct of our evolution. Like, good luck trying to get rid of fear. But what we can do is become very aware of what that fear is and what it actually means. And all it is a feeling sprung up from a thought because of unknown territory. Once you put it that way, it really doesn't hold that much power. So instead of eliminate, I want you to think of identify, because you need to identify and become crystal clear on the decisions you should make that get you one step closer to who you want to be. And inevitably, in that journey, fear will spark up. And when it does spark up, and when that fear does arise, we need to use that vision that we have of ourselves to burst through that fear. So no, while we can't really eliminate fear because of its biological component, what we can do is identify when that fear will pop up because we know exactly who we want to be and the decisions we have to make. From there, we have to burst through that fear with the vision of who we want to be. I'm gonna give you guys a couple examples in my personal story so it makes sense a little bit better. So if you guys don't know this, I'm a college baseball coach and we just played a couple games at home and we really shit the bed. We were not a substantially worse team than this opposing team that we played, but we got our asses kicked. And there's a few reasons for that that are kind of irrelevant. However, I was very aware of them. And I felt like something just had to be said to the team in order for us to make a change. Now, here's the thing. I get really riled up and very passionate about what I speak about. There's a lot of emotions, passion, fear, all running through inside of me before I decided to speak to the team in our group huddle. I mean, there's a lot of guys here. There's like 40 plus dudes. And I typically, don't give pregame speeches or anything like that. It made me very nervous when I decided to do so. And that's when that fear really popped up for me. I was scared. Now this fear, right, it came from this thought of, what if they don't respect my message? Or what if I stutter and sound stupid or forget what I'm actually trying to say or convey? And those thoughts led into the feeling of overwhelm, anxiousness, overarching fear. But then I told myself this, Nate, the person you want to be, the person you want to become, absolutely says this message to the team. No ifs, ands, or buts. And if you notice this fear and you still decide to take part of that fear and not give your message, that is a massive disservice to who you want to be as a man, who you want to be as a coach, and ultimately that version of you that you pictured yourself as way in the past. So that vision literally guided me to having that conversation despite feeling immense fear about it. And you know what happens? I don't mess up. I deliver a clear and passionate message, and we end up winning that game, putting up 8 runs in the first inning. By the way, got 10-run ruled the game before. We played with an edge, conviction, and passion, sparked by that message. I actually made a difference for the team with my words, with my energy. And I also made a difference within myself because I got one step closer to the man that I want to become. All because I held on to that vision and I bursted through the fear, no ifs, ands, or buts, and made it happen. That is what it's all about. I also recently joined a community of coaches online. This was not a cheap investment for me with money, with time, or energy. It's realistically the first time I've ever invested into a mentor or into myself in general. And right after I joined, this group holds an in-person meeting and event across the country. I am in Indiana, they are in Scottsdale, Arizona. This is a 4.5-hour flight. I've never even been on the west side of the country. And they want me to fly there like a month after joining this massive group that I just poured in a lot of money, time, and effort into. At first, it sounded really daunting and pretty scary to meet a bunch of new people, go to this event, like really growing up. Like this is some adult shit. I just got out of college. Like this is really scary for me. However, I knew exactly what the ideal version of myself does in that situation, and they go across the country. They meet these people in his group, okay? He also takes a lot what they have to say to heart and implements it within his business, undoubtedly. And he bashes through that fear. So you know what? I had a lot of fear. I didn't want to fly across the country. I didn't want to meet new people. It made me nervous. These people are adults. They have a lot more money than me. Maybe they're going to look down on me. But you know what? I said, fuck it, okay? Because I held on to that vision. I bursted through the fear yet again. And here I am, right? I took so much away from that. I had a great time. I met new, amazing people. And I would never, ever, ever trade that experience away. So the moral of the story is you have to become clear on what that ideal version of yourself is. And then secondly, what he does. Once you know that conceptually, you have to tie that into these decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis and within your life, because you will have a fork in the road. You're either gonna take the path of least resistance, side with the fear, give up, not take the risk, whatever it is, or you can take the path of your ideal self. And simply, this path leads to regret, and this path leads to reward. So it's up to you, man. I mean, you have the choice in this. It's your life. Are you going to lead your life with fear? Or are you gonna bash through that fear and live your life through your ideal self? It's up to you. So get clear on who he is and what he does. Because fear is a feeling that very rarely tells you the truth. It's generally always lying. And ultimately, that cannot shape who you are. Remember, don't settle, stand out.